All right, today I'm going to talk about Unit 7 study guide. So, number one, what is the Cold War? Um, the Cold War is the two predominant characters of the United States and the USSR. After World War II, we are going to have this constant threat or fear of being on the brink of nuclear warfare. After the United States drops the atomic bomb in 1945, it takes about 4 years for the USSR to replicate the technology. After this, we will be in a consistent arms race. Um, and feel a constant threat of being on the brink of nuclear warfare. When we talk about the Iron Curtain, Winston Churchill described the USSR and the Eastern Bloc, which are the Eastern nations of Europe, and how there had been an Iron Curtain pulled between the East and the West. When we talk about the Iron Curtain, it's a military, political, and ideological barrier between the Soviet Eastern Bloc and between the Western Bloc and the United States. It's all about the difference between communism and democracy. There were many nations in the Eastern Bloc of Europe that fell to communism because they were poor and broken after World War II, that it seemed like it was a good idea or could benefit their community or nation to be part of a communist union, as in the Soviet Union. What is the internal struggle for Vietnam and Cambodia? It's pretty much the same thing. We are fighting between having a democracy or falling to communism. And especially when we talk about communism, the government has a dictator. So what they say goes. Another thing, NATO is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. They're big on collective security and maintaining peace. And they want to prevent the spread of communism. The United States is the forerunner in that organization. Some other members will be Great Britain, France, and Spain, other areas like that, Greece. And when we talk about the Warsaw Pact, it'll be headed up by the USSR. And they are kind of, I'm not saying that they are, well, they kind of are pro-communism. They don't see anything wrong with communism. They think it's good for their governments and their nations. So you kind of have two groups that are, once again, fighting between democracy and communism. What's going to happen in the Korean War? Korea will be taken away from Japan in 1945 after World War II. And the USSR and the United States and other Western nations will decide to split Korea and try to rehabilitate it. So the northern half will be communist and the southern half will be democracy. Well, what the northern side wants to do is take over the southern side and make the whole nation communist. The United States, through the Truman Doctrine and us believing in the domino theory and containment, we will not want communism to spread. So ultimately, this war will break out. It will last from 1950 to 1953. China and the USSR will align with North Korea, whereas South Korea will be helped and aided by the United States as well as the United Nations. And once again, this war is to prevent the spread of communism. Okay. What are the struggles in Vietnam? The largest struggle in Vietnam is one struggle is between communism and democracy. Another one that you could kind of throw in there would be a sense of nationalism, because Vietnam is trying to unite as a nation and have elections and pick a leader. And you have the South Vietnam leader does not want to participate in these elections, and he wants to keep his dictatorship. And then you have Ho Chi Minh in North Vietnam, who's maintaining communism there. And you have an issue between nationalism, but also foreign involvement. The United States gets involved in Vietnam, and a lot of people perceive it as possible imperialism. Are they the good guys or the bad guys? What is the United States' intention? But when we talk about the Cold War, Vietnam happened during the Cold War, and it is a struggle predominantly between democracy and communism. When we discuss number 6, what type of warfare was the main threat during the Cold War? Nuclear. Number 7, what is a green revolution? Pretty much what a green revolution is an introduction of high-yielding seeds and modern agricultural techniques. Let me explain. High-yielding seeds, we're talking about vegetation that will now produce a high yield or a large amount of food, corn, wheat, things like that. When we talk about agricultural techniques, we're going to talk about pesticides, which keep bugs and diseases from contaminating plants and affecting human life. We're talking about soil conservation, where We figure out ways to prevent soil erosion, contamination. Pretty much what it is a green revolution is where you are applying science to farming and agriculture. We study plants. We figure out how to mutate plants or replicate plants to make them a better strand for humans to intake and help our bodies. It's how to make a smaller quantity and produce a mass quantity of food. Just research and science being integrated with agriculture. What are global issues that society is facing today? Explain. I'm just going to list off a couple things. You're going to explain it on your study guide when you fill it out. Global issues in society. Pollution. We have issues with our ozone layer. We have exhaust. We are dealing with water contamination. We are tearing down rainforest. We are tearing down forests in general, which cause deforestation, where you clear off mass amounts of land to build homes or to do things like that, but you're taking away trees, which is a supply of oxygen to the human life, or a supply of oxygen. Excuse Miss Cannon. When we talk about desertification, is when we overgraze our land with animals. We run sheep or cows and they overeat off of this land and don't give it time to replenish its nutrients. Same thing with farming. Constant farming of the land, tilling of the land, erosion with rain can take the nutrients away from the soil, and eventually that land that was once fertile can be dry and have a desert like texture where you cannot grow anything any further. Another issue, overpopulation. With globalization and a rise in population, because what you need to understand is that, first of all, we have more technology. We understand our bodies better, and we have a lot of medicine, and we know how to preserve our bodies. We live longer. We have more children. There's not enough room on the earth, and we're slowly clearing out more of nature to make more room for people. And so we have to find a really good balance of, we have to maintain some of the environment, but we also have to find a stable, area for people to live and survive. When we talk about globalization, it's awesome that nations are interconnected, but it can cause an issue because we outsource jobs to different nations that we don't have to pay people as much, which means the home country loses jobs. So there's several global issues that we're dealing with. Terrorism is one of them. I'm on number 9. What is terrorism? Terrorism is the use or threat of violence to spread religious, ideological, or political motives. When we talk about terrorism, people use violence, bombings, threats, television to push through ideological beliefs, which are your beliefs like fascism or totalitarianism, things like that. Those are belief systems. Also, religion. If a religious groups believe a certain thing and they want everyone else to believe, they may use violence or tactics to cause fear. What you need to understand is that terrorism, the exact root word is what it means, terror. It causes terror and fear in the individual or group of people to get them to bend to another group of people, or an idea, or religious aspects, or political motives. Use fear, because fear in the world is a great weapon, because when people are in fear and terror, they will do whatever it takes to get out of it. The Red Cross is a non-governmental organization. What things do they participate in to help humanity? When we talk about the Red Cross, first of all, they're an international organization. They care for the needy in the world. It was established in 1864 at the Geneva Convention. What you understand is even the American Red Cross, remember we showed you nurses in World War I, they had the American Red Cross on their arms, and they were helping those soldiers in the war and aiding them to get back into health. The American Red Cross also has blood drives so that people with different types of blood can have blood transfusions. If they're in an emergency situation, they can receive blood to keep them alive, and things like that. The United Nations, let's see. The United Nations was founded in 1945. It is to promote peace and security in the world. They also encourage economic, nope, sorry, Miss Cannon's wrong. Sorry. They, no, I'm right. Sorry. They, increase or help with economic development in nations as well. Guys, when we talk about the United Nations, they even, get involved in the like fight against communism because they will ally with the United States in certain wars. Another thing, the International Monetary Fund, or the IMF, is going to be established in 1945 as well. It will promote international trade, and it will increase the exchange of major currencies. When we talk about major currencies, I mean money. So, like the American currency would be like the dollar bill, the Benjamin, or the $100 bill, and then you have currencies like the euro, the rand, things like that. Okay, the yen. When we talk about number 13, who created new reforms in the Soviet Union and what were they? You have Gorbachev. Remember the guy we showed you that had the big birthmark on his forehead? Gorbachev is going to take over the Soviet Union in 1985. He will have two concepts, glasnost and perestroika, which glasnost means economic reform. So what he tries to do is change the economy to benefit the people of the Soviet Union, and he's trying to reform because what Gorbachev realizes is that this communist aspect, the Soviet Union, is far behind other nations in the world. And what you need to remember is that the Soviet Union didn't just consist of Russia, it had 15 other republics as well. And what they're noticing is that what Gorbachev's going to point out is that, hey, this whole economic system is not working out. And we need to try to change it and reform it so we can keep up with the rest of the modern world. Also, perestroika was a concept that was more openness, allowing the people of the Soviet Union to have more free expression. Because what you need to understand about communism, and I think you guys already really get it, when we talk about the USSR and the Cold War, you do not speak out against the government. You do not speak out against your leader. And especially when we talked extensively about Stalin. Stalin, you talk out against the government, or he even suspected you of doing that, you disappeared. And it's not in a good way. When we talk about what was the cause of the Soviet Union to collapse, there are several things. First of all, they're in an economic crisis, having a lot of issues with changing the economy. Gorbachev has new reforms. A lot of people are going to rebel against it. Remember, when you've been doing something for a really long time, you're very hesitant to change. Communist leaders in the Soviet Union are not going to want communism to go away. So what they're going to try to do is get Gorbachev out of office and by coup d'etat, which is taking the government over by force. They will be unsuccessful, so that fails. As well as republics. The 15 republics that are part of the Soviet Union are going to start to want independence and freedom away from communism. And it's very difficult when Eastern nations are looking at Western nations and seeing that democracy can cause success and promote individuality and private businesses and a capitalist economy. And they desire that too, and they want to have more freedoms and rights and expressions, and democracy can offer that to them. So they're going to try to break away as well. Number 15, what happened to Germany in 1990? First of all, first thing that's going to happen on November 10th, 1989, November 10th, 1989, yes, exactly. The Berlin Wall is going to fall, which will break the division between West Berlin and East Berlin. So then ultimately after this, it's very symbolic because this city becomes one again, that East Germany and West Germany will reunite. So there will be no more occupation of the USSR, the United States, France, or Great Britain. We will all pull out in 1990. Germany will be unified, and they will be unified and called the Federal Republic of Germany. If you have any questions about this video, you can you can't call Miss Cannon, but you can tweet me or Google text me whenever you need to. Please take a look, listen. You can rewind, fast forward, pause to get all the information you need, and I'm expecting that study guide filled out tomorrow. Have a great evening.